Hi, welcome to my blog today. And in this blog, we're going to talk about lighting patterns. Okay, if you can see right now, our lovely assistant here is Viola. She is a mannequin head that we got at Goodwill, so that when I don't have a model, I can still bring you guys some training. So when you look at this model, you'll see that the light is coming directly in front. There's no shadows on her face. There's no shadow under her nose. There's no shadows on her cheeks. Now there's a little bit of shadow on her face down here in the lower parts of her cheeks, and that's simply because I have a black background that's creating like a contrast because it's really close. And if I bring it closer, you can see it probably gets a darker in the cheeks. And I can fill that in with a reflector if I want it to be completely flat. However, that doesn't do any favors for anyone when you have flat lighting. So in this tutorial, we're going to talk about lighting patterns and how to create them, or where you want to position the light, as well as lighting ratios. So let's start off with one of the first ones. It's a classic one. It's called Paramount lighting. It's also known as butterfly lighting. And this will suck in the cheeks, and it will create a pattern right underneath the nose. And if you get too much contrast, which means the shadow area is too dark, you can use a reflector to fill it in. So what we'll do is we'll raise our light up, okay, and we'll raise it up just a little bit more, and we'll bring it over top of the model, or over top of the dummy, and you can see we get that little pattern of light underneath the nose. Now since I moved the light closer, I want to check exposure and make sure everything's okay. So now we're at 7:1, so it got a little darker, so it's probably more contrasty on the video. So let's see if we can get to 7:1. Okay, so there's the proper exposure for the diffuse value. And let's bring in a reflector to open up that shadow area and control the contrast. So now her neck isn't so bright. Now what a lighting ratio is this? Is the relationship between the diffuse value, which is your proper exposure on your skin tone. Say if we measured here, this would be where the diffused value is. Or if we measured the forehead, this would be the diffused value. And its exposure in relationship to the shadow area. So if we grab our meter and we measure, and we're going to point back at the light source, and it says we're F9, okay? And if we measure down in the shadow, since we need to be in the shadow, we need to block it from the actual light source itself. So we'll come back here, or if you try to measure here, you're going to catch the dome. So another way you can do it is spot metering it, but when you get to the lighting pattern on the side, it's a little easier to figure out. But I know that if I come over here in the shadow area, it's going to give me roughly the same amount of shadows underneath this neck. So I'm going to measure over here, and it's F2.2. So it's saying that there is between F2, which we have, let's call it F2, F4, F5/6, F8. So that's 4 1/8 or 4 1/3 stops of difference between here and here. So that would be over a 4:1 ratio, which is not a real flattering ratio. And you can control the amount of contrast you have in your scene by simply adding another light or putting in a fill reflector. Okay, so this is Paramount lighting, also known as butterfly lighting. Again, it's because of that pattern on the face. So let's move right into split lighting, which we showed a little bit in the last tutorial. And split lighting would be a situation where we have the light from one side of the subject, creating that defined pattern down the nose. And we're always going to look and see where the shadow is from the tip of the nose. Okay, so you see right here, the tip of our nose, that means the light is too low. We need to raise the light up till the shadow goes to the nose, so we don't have to keep moving our lights around when we do our other patterns. Okay, so I'm going to move it up just a hair more. Okay, so now the light's in the proper height, okay, but we need to get it away from the face. Let me move this over here. To get a split light, we need to get the light back over in this area. And I'm from the side, so I might need to bring it forward some, just a little bit. Okay, so there's a split light. And what we're going to do with this split light is we're going to measure to make sure we have the proper exposure. So we're going to measure to the light source from the highlight, which is going to be the cheek area. And it's saying 6.3. So we need to adjust our aperture to 6.3. Okay. So we're going to go to 6.3. So that's the proper exposure for split. But you can see that we're getting a little bit of too much over here in the forehead, where this pattern is creeping over. So we can change that by feathering the light or dropping the light. You just keep moving the light until you get it where you need it to be. And I'm not going to be able to do it unless I move her away from the light and reposition the camera. So let's see here. Let me try this. I'm working with constant light sources without shade. This is just an open reflector here. Let's see here. Let's get down to one light, and I might have to change the exposure. Okay, so there we're going to get more of a split pattern on the face. Now let's check the exposure again. We're going to measure right, same place. Now we're saying 4.5. So we're going to open this up to 4.5. So there's the proper exposure on the diffuse value. And we want some more light in the eye. So we can rotate this around. And there you have your split lighting pattern. And again, we talked about what you would use this for maybe would be in a cowboy movie. Let's open up the shadow some. This is a really strong ratio. You can see this is really dark compared to this. So since we're at 4.5 here, and if we measure the other side, so we're at, see here, 4.5, and let's just measure it pointing to the camera so we can give it an exact ratio. It's 3.6, and this side is f11. So that gives you, it's like a, so let's do it. Let's call it 3.6 f4, f4 to 5.6, 5.6 to f8, f8 to 11. So it's over 4 to 1 on our ratio. So let's control that ratio. Let's open it up. So if we bring this reflector in, we still have a shadow on our face. However, it's not f11 anymore. Let's measure what it is. So we're saying 3.6, and it's f2. So it's like a 1 to 2, rough, just under 1 to 2 ratio. Okay, so determining how you want, say for maybe males, you could probably do a stronger ratio, maybe a 2 to 1 or 3 to 1. But on the babies and females, you might want to do, 2 to 1. Okay. But you don't want to have that 4 to 1 ratio. Anything more than 4 to 1 ratio is kind of creepy looking. So let's put this reflector up permanent. So we're going to open up these shadows for the rest of the tutorial so it's not so dramatic and looks so weird. And I'm working off of Illuminator arm from Westcott, which is like the best reflector arm holder you can ever buy. It will let you put a reflector in any configuration you want. You can twist them into a potato chip and it will hold it, which is pretty important. Okay, so this ought to be a lot better contrast than before. Let me move it back just a hair. Alright. So that's split lighting. Let's move into Rembrandt lighting. Now, Rembrandt lighting can only be done on certain models or certain people. I'm going to turn this mannequin to the side and explain to you what you want to look for when you're trying to do Rembrandt. The bridge of the nose. Do you see she has a very shallow bridge of a nose? Well, somebody that has a very shallow bridge of the nose, you might not be able to pull Rembrandt off on them, because we need this bridge to create that triangle shape. We almost have the triangle shape right here on her face, as we are. Let me make sure that we get an exposure that's right, so that I'm not doing the majority of this pattern. So we're at 5/6. This is what makes a light meter so nice to work with, is that we can adjust exposure and know we're dead on based on our diffuse value, and everything else falls in line. You can see we're starting to get the triangle shape pattern in her face. Let's raise this up some more. Okay, there it is right there. We have that triangle shape. Now you can make the triangle shape bigger if you like, just by bringing it closer. Okay, so the whole idea with Rembrandt, it's designed to mimic Rembrandt's studio that he had, which he had a skylight overhead that created that diamond, that triangle shaped pattern of light. What you want to look for when you're creating Rembrandt is you don't want any light in the eye. If you look at all of his pictures, his portraits that he made, you'll notice that there's no light in the eye. I see a lot of times people do Rembrandt and there's light in the eye. Well, that's not a true Rembrandt. If you see any of the eyes lit up on the side where that triangle is on a Rembrandt painting, it's probably counterfeit, because he never had that. And this shadow is created by the eye socket. This nose from here to here creates this triangle, and the cheek fall off creates the pattern on the far side. So the eye socket's here, the nose creates this, and the cheek creates that. So now if we want to do loop lighting, all you would need to do is have your model turn from full face view into 2/3 view. And when you're in 2/3 view, you'll know if you go too far, the nose will break the plane of the cheek. You always want to make sure the tip of the nose is inside the cheek. Okay, I can't see because I'm not at the camera position, but I'll just set it and look and see if it's too far. No, it's still in the face, but if you went to this direction, you see the nose goes past the cheek. That's too far. So we turn it back until we get the nose well inside the cheek, and then you want to focus on the closest eye to the camera. Okay, so there we have it, and you see the light starting to get into the eye. And since she has plastic eyes, we can't see where the catch lights are, so you want to make sure you have a good catch light in both eyes. You want it at the 2 o'clock or the 10 o'clock positions on your catch lights. If you're being judged in a competition, that's what they're going to be looking for. And let's move this reflector in just a little bit and open up the shadow. Okay, so we look at our lighting pattern. It's a little tall. You see that the nose is going down the side of the face. So we can lower the light some. Let's lower it down. And we can watch this nose pattern again. Okay, do you see that nose pattern? It's there. It's in the laugh line where we want it to be. Okay, and now we can rotate the light away or rotate the light to, depending on what we're trying to do with this light pattern. So this is loop lighting, where you see that you get this loop shadow underneath. It's a lot like Rembrandt, except you're going to see that the eye is lit up. Okay. Now, the next pattern that we're going to look at, which really isn't a pattern, okay, it's called broad or short lighting. So I'm going to pull this light back further, so where she has light in both sides of her cheeks. We don't have that crazy pattern, and I'm going to raise my light up some to get that nose shadow in the right spot. Okay, there we go. So now we know the light's high enough, and we'll just bring it forward to get more light in the face. Okay, so broad lighting and short lighting. Okay, so if we have our model turned this way, okay, let me look at the back of the camera, see where we're at. Okay, do you see that the largest portion of her face, between her chin and her ear, this is larger than the distance that's in view from here to here. Okay, since the largest or the broadest portion of her face is in the light, this is called broad lighting. Okay, broad lighting is okay for somebody that's thin. However, if you have somebody that's got a large face, a large person, a fat person like myself, if you light them in broad, you're not doing them any favors. What's the classic rule in in photography is just the same as Photoshop. Black conceals, light reveals. So I'm going to reveal that I have this great big face. However, if I turn the face away and I put the majority of the face that's in the shadow in the camera, you'll see that the face is slimmed down. Okay? Because I'm concealing all of this face area that's big and bulky into shadow. So my eyes are drawn to the lighted area of the face. This is called short lighting. The shortest portion of her face is in shadow. Actually, the shortest portion of her face is lit. The longest portion of her face is in shadow. I know it seems kind of strange, but if the shortest portion of her face is in the light, that's short lighting. If the broadest portion of her face is in the light, it's broad lighting. Broad lighting, short lighting. Okay? Short lighting, again, is for heavy people or women that you want to take a few pounds off people. You put them in short lighting. Okay? So there we have it. We have split, Paramount, butterfly, loop, short, and broad. So there you have it. I want to thank you for visiting my blog today. Until next time, we'll see you soon.